start, go.
It's running.
Great. And stream to Twitch, go.
And stream is running.
All right, we're rolling. Timer starts now. Clark. Hi. Hi.
Hi.
I'm Ford.
And I'm Sky.
And that's Sky. She's over there doing 8 things. With our powers combined, we are the writing partnership of L. Skyford. Welcome to Booklandia. This is also our first episode. Here at Booklandia, we're going to geek out on all kinds of literary topics, from what we're currently reading. We're going to talk a review of a book a little bit later. We're going to talk about old school classics sometimes, tropes, character types, what we love, what we loathe. You can follow us on Twitter at SkyfordL, Instagram at LSkyford. If you're here on Twitch, you found us at SkyfordL. And if you're here on YouTube, also same thing, L Skyford. We're everywhere. And if you're interested in the book that we wrote, you can head over to our website, lskyford.com. And these are our faces.
That's true. And these are our faces.
So today we're going to talk about Rebecca Weatherspoon's Sanctuary. And first, we need to talk drinks, I think. We like to talk about a themed drink. I fell asleep in a White Russian stupor last night, so now that I've caffeinated, I'm going to hydrate for this episode.
That's a good call. So first, I feel like we should. I'm gonna do this because I prepped this graphic, so we're all gonna enjoy this graphic.
Yeah, you did.
All right, it's gonna go this way, and then it's gonna go back into its corner. So that's the book.
Oh, look at those abs! They're glorious.
So the book is Rebecca Weatherspoon's Sanctuary, Beards and Bondage #2. And I only point that out because there are, if you just go to Goodreads and put in Sanctuary, I think there are possibly 17 books all with that title. So the
only 17.
The addition of Beards and Bondage matters.
Great. You're right, and I'm glad you said that because I went out that #2 in a series too.
Yes.
So
drinks.
So drinks. Okay, are you drinking anything?
I am actually. I am drinking tea, and it is. This is going to be such a terrible segue, but so this is Trope Tea from the Ripped from you. Yes, thank you. From the Ripped Bodice bookstore in Culver City, which leads me to our shout out to a local bookstore. And the Ripped Bodice is really tied into what we're talking about today for a variety of reasons. A, it is a romance only bookstore, which is pretty great. Not a lot of those around and very exciting. It's a bookstore that we discovered. And I'm sorry, I'm speaking for both of us here, but we discovered after the pandemic started. And so we haven't physically been there, and it's sort of driving me batty. I really, really want to go. Beyond the fact beyond the fact that they sell tea, they sell romance books. They sell tea. It's called Trope Tea. It's an adorable premise. This Trope Tea is there's only one bed, which leads into our book so very much because one of the tropes in this book is there is only one bed.
There's only one bed.
And this is really the last one, I promise, Rebecca Weatherspoon, in the acknowledgement of this book, thanks the Ripped Bodice for supporting her through writing this book. So I don't know in what way they played a role, but they were involved, and that is the third and final tie-in of the Ripped Bodice to today's cast.
what I like about the Ripped Bodice is they're also doing a subscription box service. So every month you would get a box, and it has two romance novels and like a couple of different trinkets. Like I was looking at January's box, and they're like, you want to be surprised. You really want to be surprised by what's in the box. But if you don't want to be surprised, click here. And you click, and then like you really want to be surprised, just like you don't mean it, but if you really want to know, click here. So I've done the clicking, I know what's coming in January, and one of the books is a book I really want to read. I'm not going to spoil it for people, they didn't click here. uh but also there's a candle in it, there's like something like it's such a cute like self-care focus sort of offering. I thought it was very clever, and I think they're just the best, even though I've never met them and never been there.
Right? Like, yes. So, goal for 2021 is to finally actually make it to the Ripped Bodice.
To go to there. I want to go to there.
I want to go to there. Exactly.
You're drinking tea. I'm hydrating from just drinking far too many White Russians. But if our listeners, our audience members, were to make a sanctuary themed drink,
so
where would you go?
Well, so usually in usually in any book, specifically in a romance book, there's always a drinking scene or a bar scene or a friends get drunk together scene. This book actually doesn't have any of that at all. The biggest thing that happens in this book is a lot of conversation about a fruit orchard. There's jam, there's donuts, there's pie, there's a lot of talk about Italian food. There is a lot of talk about peaches, picking peaches, eating, like it's a lot about peaches. So if that were to translate into a drink, for me, that drink would be a drink I would not drink because it's too sweet. I don't like sweet drinks. But you would probably enjoy like a peach Bellini or something very similar to that.
Yeah. Just like peach schnapps and Coke. Like, let's get the real bottom rung here. Whatever I've got in the pantry. That I used to drink a lot of peach schnapps in college. That's a phase I've since moved out of, but you know, it's delicious and sweet. You did not get it wrong there.
Yeah, I don't know that I can do that. Sorry, hold on. I just so you know, I just knocked my table, which is amazing. So I'm just gonna fix that.
You just refocus. I'm gonna talk about how it's also an apple farm. So I was thinking, like, what can you make with apple juice? And I'm not a bartender, so I don't know. I was just like, you can match anything with apple juice. If you like alcohol, you can put it with apple juice, in humble opinion. So yeah, not an easy one to do a drink pairing for. But listeners, if you're inclined, we've given you a few solid C- ideas. You can pour yourself a drink, and it should be ready by the time we get to talking more in depth about Sanctuary. And I'm just gonna keep hydrating. Good Lord.
Sounds good. So one of the other things about this book was food-related things about this book was the peach orchard. And this is actually the second book that we've read this year that prominently featured a peach orchard. The other one being Girl Gone Viral by
Alicia Rai. Yep.
Also set in a peach. That one is set specifically in a peach orchard. This one is set in a fruit orchard. Silas, the main male character of this book, makes a huge point to point out that they don't just do peaches. They do all the fruit. But so when we read the previous book, we read it in the spring and peaches weren't in season yet. And when we attempted to try and make a peach sandwich or a peach anything, we couldn't because peaches weren't in season. We've sort of hit on the exact same thing, right? Now peaches are out of season again, and we've read another peach-related book. So main takeaway here is check food in your book before you read it so you can, when you're craving said food, actually get it in your mouth. Get it in your mouth.
So we're suggesting to read Sanctuary in like September, like
right.
August,
peach
September.
season.
Yeah.
Yes.
Peach season.
Yes. This book is great for peak peach season.
Perfect. Peak peach season. Okay, so we're gonna let you guys take us into your wet bar area. You're gonna mix your drinks, because I want to move away from the book for just a brief minute and point something out. So, Sky, you and I have talked about how we're very much the same, and then also complete opposites in like equal measure. So I want to ask you a question that I did not prep you on, so I'm ready for your face. Can you guess how many books you have on your to read shelf on Goodreads?
258.
Okay, too many. You have like 152.
Okay, that's manageable.
Do you want to guess how many are on my to read shelf on Goodreads?
417, considering that you put everything on your to read shelf.
1,935 books.
That is a little bit more overwhelming for me.
But how do you keep track of what you want to read? It's just like, it feels so specific and selective, and you're going to forget something.
Yes.
I don't understand.
It is possible that I'm going to forget something, but it is also likely that I'm going to put it on a gigantic to read list, and no judgment here on your gigantic to read list, and not find it, right? Like if my list is more than 10 pages, I'm not scrolling. Like I have very short attention span, and I will find a shiny cover and I will read whatever that shiny cover is way before I get to the bottom of the list. The only reason I know the book that is the very first book on my list is because sometimes Goodreads will reorganize the order of things, and that is the only when I see that book. So if my list is that much longer, there's no way. So I do, you're right. I add things fairly exclusively to my list, only like sort of within a certain amount of time of wanting to read it. Otherwise, I rely on news sources, if you will, or lists, or Goodreads itself to let me know where I should head next.
Purge your list.
I'm sorry?
Do you list? Do you go, I don't want to read that anymore, remove?
So recently I haven't removed a bunch of stuff from my list, but I usually do. Yes. If I put a book on my list and then I've read some reviews or I've decided that this is a book that I'm no longer reading, I do remove it off of my list. Yes.
Okay. All right. See, I like it. I like having everything on there because it also helps with the giveaways. I get a lot of giveaway notifications and I apply for a lot of giveaways, and I just finally won one after like 6 years.
That's fantastic.
Good times. Yeah. But okay, so we're complete opposites. It makes no sense, but I understand it. I can understand a streamlined Goodreads. So listeners, do you have all the books on your Goodreads, or you have none of the books on your Goodreads? Let us know. Which camp are you in? Camp Ford or Camp Sky? Oh, that sounds delightful, Camp Sky. Okay, anyway. But that also brings us to news. Book news. I just came up with that song. Hope you liked it. Goodreads posted their best books. Final winners. And so, for those of you who might not be familiar, Goodreads allows 3 rounds of voting on their best books of the year in 2 rounds. Great, thank you. In a bunch of categories. Fiction, historical, horror, they cover it. I have voted for so many years at this point. I think it's pretty fun. It also helps me see what I didn't read or might not have heard a lot about. I like to use it as kind of a gauge of where I was this year in like popular reading. Did you vote, Sky?
I did vote. I discovered that we did not read a bunch of stuff that was popular this year. Also, we sort of stuck to a genre this for a lot of this year, and we've been reading a lot of romance, both for research purposes for ourselves and because we were looking for stress relieving things. But I also then couldn't really find anything in the romance section that we've read. And the book that won the romance category, From Blood and Ash by Jennifer Armentrout. So I've read Armentrout before. I haven't read this. I did put it on my to read list after it was named the winner, probably partially because it was voted. Also, I've been meaning to give Armentrout another go since. So I read a series of hers and did not enjoy it very much and have since not approached her writing. But I like that is a silly reason not to continue reading a writer. It might have just been that series. I want to say aliens were involved. Oh, yes. And it was called Obsidian. The book was called Obsidian and there were aliens and I did not love it. And yes. And Lux,
Lux, I think.
There we go.
The name of the series.
Oh, okay. So I don't even think I made it through the series. Either way, I'm gonna give Jennifer Armentrout another try. Possibly, that book is on my list. And then, I have Sarah J. Maas's Crescent City, which was the winner for I'm looking over here on the list for fantasy.
I think it was.
Yeah. And so the thing with Sarah J. Maas for me is her books are really fantastic, but so stressful. And I have to be in the right headspace to read a stressful book because otherwise it just adds to the overall anxiety. And in an unsurprising turn of events, it has not been a great time for anxiety. And so her book has sat in my Kindle unopened because anxiety much. And this book might not be anxiety inducing in the way that her other series are, but both of her other two series that I've read are anxiety inducing for me. I think like it's really interesting. It's really like there's a lot in there, but it just like there are just really tense moments and I am not ready for those. So also on the to read list, not at this time.
Yes. So I voted in the romance category for You Had Me at Ola because of the ones we had read this year, which was, let's see, in that category, Something to Talk About, Boyfriend Material, Beach Read, but stood out to me the most. I probably would have voted for Take a Hint, Danny Brown, but I didn't get to that, even though I know you did. So that's where I voted in romance, and that From Blood and Ash also got a really good review from someone in our book club, so it is also on my to read shelf for that reason. Oh, we also read Boyfriend Material, which was cute, but You Had Me at Ola got my vote in that category.
Interesting. So you and I really did not have the same feels about that book.
Sure. Yes. And we can go down that rabbit hole perhaps.
we don't have to.
This is not the episode for You Had Me at Ola. In the fantasy category, I voted House on the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. Made me cry, and having a strong emotion and a dog bomb are very important things to have right now. Yeah. Okay. All right. It's apparently breakfast time, so this might be happening the rest of the episode. Yeah. We'll go back to the winners as I was scrolling through the rest of them. Everybody's reading Invisible Life of Addie LaRue right now.
Oh,
goodness.
I actually
Much
don't know
dogs
much about
happening.
it.
Everybody's picking it up at the bookstore, I feel
I see.
like. I believe it's she is immortal. The premise is she is immortal, but the other side of it is she is immediately forgotten after people interact with her. She's immediately forgotten. So she can live forever, but no one remembers her.
Interesting. That I feel like that is a premise it's a similar premise to other books about sort of the cost of immortality.
Yeah. I like books that have a cost that way. And then winner for best young adult fiction, which we read a lot of, Clap When You Land. I did not read. Have you read
that? No, I know what it's about. I did not read it. The title like rips at my personal heartstrings because I remember landing at JFK for the first time, and there were people on my airplane that clapped when the airplane landed. And so when I saw the title of this book, I was like, I lived this moment. I know what they're talking about. And
crazy and brilliant.
I mean, it's really well put, but whatever story is behind it may not be the same story as mine, but on that one, like just on the title line, we connected.
That's incredible. And then lastly, science fiction. Did you read any science fiction this year? Did you vote in that category?
Well, I gotta go to science fiction. Hold on, I'm clicking away.
So the winner in that category was To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, which I know we wanted to read, but it's like 650 pages, and that was a lot. I voted, no surprise to anyone in our book club, for Murderbot by so it's The Network Effect by Martha Wells. It's, I believe, number 5 in the Murderbot series, which is just a fucking delight. These books are so good.
And
so I'm bummed it didn't win.
I am this far in. I am and I am 28 pages into it, and out of 149 of the first book, so into All Systems Red. I hear all of you who are telling me that I must drop everything and read this book. I hear you, and yet here it is on my bookshelf. I'm putting it back. It's not because I don't want to. I just haven't gotten there.
No, I understand. But you also just said stressful books, you have to be in a certain headspace for stressful books. And these books are, they're the condensed soup of stressful, because all of them, except for this last one, number 5, are short stories, which means it's like a 2.5 hour read, and every page is an action sequence or some sort of stressful moment. And it's all in space, where if you get, vacked out in the space, no one can hear you scream, and you're only alive for 11 seconds. It's not stressful at all. Sci-fi is not scary at all. All right. Any last thoughts on the Goodreads best books of the year of 2020?
No, I'm a little bit surprised that N.K. Jemisin's future, when is next future Black History Month?
When is Black Future Month, I believe.
Thank you. That's it. I'm surprised that didn't make it out of the semifinals round. I actually have to take back the fact that we did read a lot of the romance in the popular romance category. And it also made me realize that I've stuck to one category this year, again, possibly for stress-related reasons, and that I should go back to branching all over the place because I miss all the other categories.
Yeah. Correction, How Long Till Black Future Month is the actual title.
Yes.
I mean, so I read that book. I only gave it 2 stars. It's a series of short stories, and so I think that's maybe the reason it didn't make it, is because it's not a cohesive thing. It was also very difficult for me to read. It required a lot of mental preparedness, I guess is the thing. And after reading romance, which you're pretty much led down the path, having reading a book that requires you to, I don't know, participate in some sort of mental way was an adjustment. And so I only gave it, there were some great stories in there that, like, I read the first half of a story to Finn because I thought it was great. But there were also some ones I'm like, oh, okay, this is a concept she was working out. And that's what she says in the beginning is these are all concepts that either became bigger books or went into other things. Like they're all bits that she collected together. So yeah, all right. Goodreads best books. Lovely. Did you agree with the votes? Did your books win? Are you bummed that your best books didn't win? Did we not talk about one that's incredible? You know, tell us about it. Come find us and yell at us about it. All right. Let's get back to Sanctuary, shall we?
Sanctuary it is. Also,
fantastic.
I feel like yelling sanctuary for just a second, but then move on to the book. It's from Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame. She knocks on the and yells sanctuary. Yep. It's a whole thing.
Would you please act it out in full accents and everything?
No way. No? I do not do accents. I can only do one accent, and that accent is whatever's coming out of my mouth. But that's it. That's the only one.
Love it. All right, so Sanctuary was published in August 2017, so a few years old. Again, we mentioned it was the second in the Beards and Bondage series. So there is a third book out there. There's also a first book out there, which I believe is called Haven.
It's Haven, Sanctuary, Harbor.
Got it. Amazing. And then Rebecca Weatherspoon has written a bunch of other books. I know, Sky, you read Xeni, Xeni.
I read Xeni and Rafe, yeah.
Yeah, Rafe, a buff male nanny.
That's correct. Rafe, a buff male nanny. Well, Xeni also has a subtitle. It's Xeni, an Inconvenient Marriage.
Ah. Are those part of the same series?
Those two are part of a series called Loose Ends, and there is more coming in that series from what I understand. And then and then these characters, Liz and Silas, are actually in Xeni. And the male main character of Xeni, Mason, is in this book as a side character. So these two are the crossover between Bearded and Bondage and Loose Ends, which is actually why I suggested that we read the second one and not the first one in this series, because we'd already met Liz and Silas and they seemed super fun in Xeni, and so I was like, I want to know more about their beginnings, so that's how we ended up here.
Amazing. Do you want to elevator pitch this for our
elevator pitch is my jam, as you well know from book club.
So is jam in this book.
Yes. There's also a lot of jam. I also say this is my jam a lot, particularly about Rebecca Weatherspoon. So I feel like this ties in really well. Elevator pitch. Liz, I actually wrote it so that it could be very elevator. Liz has narrowly escaped an assassination attempt and is in need of a hideout. When her co-worker Scott offers his house in the country, she takes it. Little does she know, it comes with Scott's grumpy but extremely hot and ripped twin brother Silas, and only one bed.
Yeah! That's an excellent elevator pitch.
I tried, but I needed more commas.
Yeah. All right, so this is a romance. We've mentioned that. It is steamy AF, and it's got some BDSM. It's got some bondage. It's called Beard and Bondage series. That should have maybe been a clue.
Well, yeah, I kind of want to get into that conversation but I'm gonna wait until we do so we're gonna do the stats on this, and then we're gonna talk about the things that worked and didn't for us. But I'm just putting a pin in that in that steamy with some BDSM pin.
Pin noted. All right, so we talked about Liz. She's the main character. She's also she goes by Elizabeth, and when she's hiding out, she goes by Evie. This was like my first stumbling block in the book is what's my character's name, because they also don't mention it for the first like 2 or 3 chapters. So Liz Elizabeth Evie. She's an attorney. She does boring law. Those are almost her exact words.
Corporate law, yes.
Yeah. All right, so we have Silas. He owns the Orchard Jam Shop Cafe. He was the abs on the photo.
He is the abs on the photo. They talk about his abs a lot. They also, I mean, we can bring that right back. We
should probably look at that again. Yeah.
Well, enjoy. You do you, boo. These could be abs just for you. I gotta tell you this. Firstly, I don't think this picture does anything to tell us the story of the orchard. And secondly, this particular picture does nothing for me personally. There's nothing wrong with it. No. It's just like, cool, noted. I wonder if it's hard to find a shirt that fits that body size.
My question is, it feels like he has too many abs in this photo, like an unnatural amount.
It does seem like a carapace more than a human body. Yes, I agree.
So Silas is a biracial orchard owner.
Yes.
And Elizabeth is also Black. So this is important. Rebecca Weatherspoon is a Black author, and she writes Black characters. So it's fantastic. We'll get into it. I have thoughts. I have more thoughts.
This is your pin?
This is my pin.
Very good. Well, let's put that pin in.
So Silas has a twin brother named Scott. He is a D-bag, but that is something we realize over the course of the book. You wrote Bad Seed, which I think is pretty apropos.
I mean, yes, right. There's some baggage between Silas and Scott, which we don't know about until it's one of the things revealed later in the book. And yeah, Bad Seed is the best example. I had some issues with grudges being held for 20 years without, and I had a hard time believing a twin dynamic in which they just cut ties with each other. Like it felt very soap opera to me. And then there's the bad twin, right? And then the twin reveal was very soap opera, but that's sort of the trope here that exists, is the bad twin, good twin. So there was no gray area for these two characters.
I also liked that. Well, I liked it. I didn't mind it because the reason they cut ties was very extreme and very emotional and complicated. But I was going to say something else. Also, Silas is neurodivergent in a way he kind of explains in his way. So not feeling connected to that or feeling like it was soap opera-y makes sense, because he just illuminated the big feelings from 20 years ago, right? He was very concise about what happened, and this is the outcome, which feels like a response that someone who has neurodivergence would have.
Yes. No, I actually really liked how Silas was represented, and how there wasn't, like, we didn't label him as anything. He doesn't have a particular, like, it's like, this is what I have and this is how you treat it. None of that happened. And that was actually really effective and powerful for me. And a thing that I really noted is that he knows that his brain functions in a different way than everybody else's, and he informs other people of that, but he does not owe us an explanation beyond that, and we didn't get one, and that's totally fine. However, it felt like that relationship between the two brothers didn't have like it didn't have an arc. It was
Mm-hmm.
angry at the beginning and it was angry at the end. And there was a hint literally in the very last page about like maybe
Yeah.
someday they'll talk. But
Yeah.
I've already read Zenny, which is 2.5 years later after this book, and I know that they still haven't talked.
Cool, 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 cool.
So it just felt like that part of his journey felt
Mm-hmm.
so she had an emotional arc and an emotional journey. His emotional journey in terms of character arc, not in terms of emoting, did not feel as arc like.
Sure.
It's like
You're not
grumpy,
wrong there.
yeah, grumpy dude with girlfriend.
Yeah. Um excuse me. Another big set of characters in this book is Liz's network of gal pals, ride or die friends. They appear mostly in texts and chats. They're in a chat group, and what I liked about them is that they were always supportive, and she always knew which one to go to for which thing, which is it's that's just how friend groups go. You're like, oh, I should go talk to Sky about this, but I'm not going to tell someone else about that. Like, that's how friend groups I think are. Is you have the one you go to for XYZ and the other one you go to for ABC, etc. And I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because you have a little bit more knowledge, that people from her friends group are the characters in books 1 and 3, Haven
That's
and Harbor.
that's correct. So yes. And then some of the other characters are mentioned in loose ends as well.
Cool.
The thing I have to say about her, so the friend group dynamic, the like bounce your ideas off of your friends, is something that is in all of the Rebecca Weatherspoon books that I've read so far. And the thing that I think about when I read these is how jealous I am of the
Mm.
diversity of personalities in this friend group. It's like you're absolutely right. She knows the people to go to for particular problems. She knows that she shouldn't go to this friend who's very hot-headed about a thing that might be a thing that this friend would decide to punch someone for. And then there are other friends that are more laid back, and she sort of has a really good grasp on all of it. uh
Yeah.
but that means that all of those friends are that diverse in terms of how like what they contribute to the group dynamic. That is the ideal and lovely, and maybe I'm just a very antisocial person, but I don't know that my friend group, I don't know that I have the emotional savvy to separate which things go to which friend in my friend group, is what I should say.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm. Yeah. I think about my friend groups, and I know who I would go to talk to about comic books, and I know who I would go to talk to about like clothing and or TV. So like I definitely have them in that niche way, and then I have you, and I talk to you about everything else.
that works out for me. I get a lot of your topics. That's great.
you, we cover a lot of things. All right, so one more character is the bad guy in the book that we never see, the shadowy Dorrit Jr., who is the reason Liz has to go into hiding. Um, so I think this is will come that
Do it
what
again.
happens is that oh, not that part.
Not that part.
Okay. So what happens is Liz loses a case for a super rich person, and they come after her for it. And this was my favorite part of the book, which I'll talk more about when we talk about our favorite parts. But like, he sends a guy to harm her, and she has to go into hiding while her friends and other people, police, try to figure it out. And I that was such a good first chapter in my opinion. So and he does a great job being a bad guy we never see. And I think that maybe is what makes it scarier, is that we have no reference for him. We get to just assign bad guyness.
He is very, very menacing. Yes. I actually have the inverse opinion that his vagueness made him less real for me and less threatening.
Mm.
And the actual assailant was a lot scarier to me than this like shadowy person that got to a lot of people. And I wonder partially if this same character is maybe in other books and is like the overarching bad guy. I don't think so, but maybe. I do know that something traumatic happens in the first book to Claudia, the character in the first book, but I have not read it.
You're right there. And I think what also is important is that the person who attacks Liz is the one she is reacting to and is continually thinking about and is having nightmares and panic attacks about. So we as the reader are taking Liz's point of view of having more visceral fear of the attacker, not the person who hired the attacker.
Yeah, so to me the assailant was the scarier thing than the threat of possible other attacks. Also, we sort of don't see it play out. Like she's hiding out from possible other attacks, and then the next thing that happens is that she gets and spoiler alert, by the way. I mean, we're 40 minutes into
so
this,
many
so I feel like spoiler alert is timely. But right, someone tries to have her, someone hires a person to have her killed, and then they send incriminating evidence about something that she did to get her fired. So like the stakes were really off, right? Like, I'm gonna murder you. Just kidding. I'm just gonna get you fired. Seemed like a lesser threat. Not that someone's life should be threatened ever for any reason, but the sort of like the impending threat of being hunted, which is how she is stuck in this moment with Silas, dissipated without her contribution to it at all. And so that, to me, that emotional stake just diffused itself, and it left me a little dissatisfied about that. I want to very quickly, bullet point style, go through the tropes that we found in this book. So to recap this, I dislike tropes very much. Despite the fact that I've been reading romance a lot, I don't like tropes because I feel like I understand why they're there. I understand that tropes are set up so that, precisely for the reason I'm reading romance right now, because it's basically a known path, right? It's you read the thing and you're like, I know how this is going to turn out, and it's going to turn out lovely, and that's going to be exciting. But to me, the fact that I'm reading romance implies that it's going to turn out lovely. So I don't necessarily need the paved path to get there. And it feels a little like they're handing too much information out ahead of time. So if I read something like, oh, there's only one bed, I already want to skip the next 3 chapters because it's going to be oh no, we're touching. And then, oh yay, we're touching for 3 chapters, right? Like, it's so laid out. I just don't like the formula of it, and I love books that break those tropes. So this one had a lot of tropes in it, and which is why I just want to bullet point through them and whether or not you thought they were effective or not. The first one on my list is there is only one bed.
Giving it a medium thumb.
Medium thumb.
Who has a huge farmhouse and doesn't have a guest bed? Like he has a reason, but like you never go upstairs. That feels weird. Also, she was there for like 2 weeks. Like, go put some clean sheets on a bed. But by then they were already hooking up. So medium. I loved it because it's also the first time we've really read There's Only One Bed, but
okay,
the logistics didn't ring true for me.
We sort of already talked about good twin, bad twin.
Yeah, that was, again, meh for me.
Fake girlfriend. She has to be his fake girlfriend.
Yeah, fake relationships I feel are so done. How many fake relationship books have we read this year? I feel half of them are fake relationships, and I'm becoming weary of
All
it.
right.
This one
Okay.
was cute. They did a good job with it. He's uncomfortable with it the whole time. Them adjusting to faking it in public and not um was interesting, but the whole trope I'm just kind of uh weary by.
Um, damsel in distress.
Yeah, it's always interesting. This book tried to have Liz say herself in many aspects and moments. So I liked the kind of push against the damsel in distress, but she still had to be driven by a man to some place where she would be protected by a man.
That's why I put
So
it on
like
there. Yeah.
men are yeah are doing a lot of the heavy lifting there.
Yes, I did feel like the men were doing a lot of the heavy lifting, which is why I put it on there. I there's one more trope that I left for the very end of my list,
Ah.
and it has to do with their sexual escapades and the fact that, and this
Ooh.
this trope always makes me throw the book across the room. And the trope is that he is
Mhm.
good at things that he's never done before. Like,
Mhm.
he tells
Yeah.
her that he's never done something, and then she immediately says in her inner monologue, he is so good at it. Having
Yeah.
not having right, like I'm not about like having done some things in my life. I know that there are things that I might have am good at now or might have naturally been better at than not, but I have never been like phenomenal at anything on the first try. And it happens so frequently. It's like, he's amazing at this. I'm like, how is that a thing? How is that a thing?
Do you think it goes back to the like soulmates trope and
I
like,
mean,
oh,
yes.
he's perfect for me?
I mean, there is literally a sentence in this book where she's like, he is exactly the right size for me. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
that's convenient. I mean,
Yeah.
not that that doesn't happen or that one doesn't think that when filled with sexual desire about their partner,
Oh,
whoever that might be.
sexual
But
desire, yes.
right, like flooded with endorphins, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But like anytime I read that sentence, I'm like, what? No, what? Every time? Really? Yes, I
Every
do
time.
think it's that. It's like, oh, he's the perfect fit and he does things in a way that is so enticing that you can't get enough, right? Otherwise, why would you come back for another escapade if it isn't very good? But I think that there would be something interesting in like, this was super awkward. Actually, Talia Hibbert has written several like super awkward sex scenes that lead to better sex scenes because that's how that works in real life, right? Like, it
Yeah.
isn't all glory. Some of it is messy and awkward, and there are injuries. Having suffered more than one injury, I can attest to that, very much so.
I would point out that this book was sex messy. There was messy sex. Like all of it felt very messy in a body fluids kind of way.
Okay, so we have to. I'm gonna
Yeah.
cliffhanger this.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we should talk about bodily fluids and the BDSM pin, and then get back to your
Yeah.
pin. I say
Great.
we're gonna take a short break right here with the promise
that's
of we're gonna
perfect.
talk about our favorite parts of the book. And we're going to come
Yep.
back to our two pins and really get into
Great.
it. So I'm leaving you on messy bodily fluids, you guys.
Messy bodily fluids. See you back here in just a few minutes, everybody.
And we're back. I can't hear you, so hold on.
Nope, me. Totally me.
Aha, there you go.
I muted myself and I didn't need to.
Nope.
All right, so we're back. We're talking about Rebecca Weatherspoon and Sanctuary, and bodily fluids is where we left off.
Bodily fluids is where we left off. So I don't actually have a problem with bodily fluids. I don't know that there was a lot of bodily fluids. Actually, I feel like there was a perfectly regular amount of them discussed in this book. I don't know what regular is, but the pin that I want to withdraw from the pin board and talk about some more is the mention of BDSM. And I have to preface it by saying that I am at best a tourist in the BDSM community. I have been to one club, and I've been lately spanked and sang happy birthday to her or something. I'm unopposed. I understand the appeal. I totally get it, but having not been part of the community in a significant way, this is what I want to point out. Everything I'm about to say is from a tourist standpoint. I vaguely understand the premise. I am not part of the community, and I don't know the rules. And this is where the crux of my problem lies. I don't know the rules, and Liz, who proclaims herself a former dominatrix, also does not explain the rules. And if there is one thing, and one and only thing, that I learned in my short trip into the BDSM community, is that the rules are really important. That the lines of control and lack of control, the permissions and the lack of permissions, those rules drive the entire sort of, like, they motivate the sexual experience. And I had no idea what the sexual rules were between Liz and Silas. And I also didn't get a really good understanding of whether or not these very specific rules was something that he was into at all. And I have read other books in this subgenre that do a better job at giving me a novice reader in the community an understanding and of why this is appealing, why this is something that they as a partnership are enjoying. And so there were a lot of instances where, instead of really diving into the enjoyment with them, which in previous Weatherspoon books I was absolutely able to do, because a lot of what she writes, a lot of sexual encounters that she writes, aren't necessarily sexual encounters that I enjoy personally, but reading them, I enjoyed our characters' enjoyment of them. And this was the first time that I read a book of hers where I was so taken out of it so frequently that it was hard for me to be like, all right, but they're really into this, even though I'm not.
Right. I am a window shopper, a BDSM window shopper.
I like that.
In that all of my experiences have been from books or movies. I think they've all been problematic books. So, reading 50 Shades of Grey is a problematic BDSM book, or at least the community said it was, so I believe them. But that series did a better job of explaining the rules and initiating a noob to the world, which is also what this book is doing, is initiating Silas into the world. Just to come back to the bodily fluids, we did have a whole conversation in book club about squirting because of this book.
Yes.
And this is my first Rebecca Weatherspoon book, which she is apparently very prolific. Like, all of her characters squirt, I guess.
So far, all three of the characters that I've encountered do, yes.
So that is above my normal threshold of bodily fluids. So
I see.
I'm going to say a little bit more than normal. Also, lots of, like, wet spots. Anyway, that's bodily fluids, done, closed, back to BDSM. What I liked about Liz is that she worked as a dominatrix. She didn't apologize for it. She loved it, and it was very pro BDSM or dominatrixing, doming. What lingo? Window shopper here. It's sex work, and I'm a big proponent of sex work is work. Sex workers need to be protected, and in this country we shame them so hard, and so I very much appreciated that point of view into the world. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I agree. I think all of that was handled really well. It was just their sexual relationship that I was like, I have a lot of questions. Please,
Yes.
how are there not more answers to my questions?
Yes, and this book had kind of continuous dubious consent. Like you said, is Silas actually into this? Their first sexual encounter, he is asleep and he is humping her, and so she gets him off. She gives him a hand job, but he was asleep. So there's no consent there. So it was just it was a little bit worrisome in that regard for me.
Yes. And I mean, I feel like in that instance, if that were a real life scenario, I would want them to have a conversation afterwards, to sort of get on the same page about him having needed or wanted or appreciated what she did, and none of that happened.
Yeah.
There's one line. There's one line where he says, "I like it, and I want you to continue to dominate." And that was like, it was like, thank you, but it's 70% into the book.
Yeah,
if
it
not
wasn't
more.
immediately after that moment. After that moment, their conversation was kind of shamey, embarrassment. So yeah.
I also had yes. So that and that sort of leads into like favorite moment of the book, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sure.
And then also my rating for the book, and we sort of need to talk a little bit about our rating system, but we'll
Sure.
get there in a second. So I don't know that I have a favorite moment per se. Oh, that's not true. I do, and it has to do with squirting, actually. And it's one of their earlier encounters, and she's on top, and the line is, and I think I even highlighted it in the book because this moment was so real. The reason I like this moment is because it felt absolutely real, like it wasn't fictitious in any way. And the line was something along the lines of she reached down to cup herself as if she could stop the flood. And like that absolutely like brainless moment where like your body does something even though you logically know that it is unstoppable, like and it's a great metaphor, right? She can't stop this train that they're on, and it's a great physical, like it's so visceral. And I was like, I absolutely know what she's talking about. That was my favorite part. It's super early in the book, but I was like, that right there is a thing that really happens to people. And it felt very real and very messy in a very real way.
My favorite part, as I mentioned, was the first chapter of the book when Elizabeth Liz is attacked in her apartment, and she fights off the attacker, and she kills him with a stiletto. Which I really want to see the MythBusters on that. The whole time I was reading the book, I was like, MythBusters need to do an episode on this, although they're canceled, they're done. Can you kill someone by garroting them with a stiletto? I love the concept. I love that she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna fight him off now," and I I don't know. It was such a good opening chapter, and I'm like, this is how she sold the book. She's got a good first chapter. Yeah. One thing I highlighted that I do want to talk about is there's a joke opening that she did not pick up. So if you're very much into RuPaul's Drag Race, whenever someone says, "How's your head?" the answer is no complaints. And she wrote, is your head okay? And the answer was, it's fine now, thank you. And I'm like, no, that's never the right response to any kind of head question ever, in my personal opinion. So I just want everyone to know the RuPaul Drag Race rules do not apply in this book.
Well, it's 2017, so Drag Race is
Oh,
already on. But
yeah,
is
yeah.
it this big? Like, do we know about it?
I I think that's this. I don't know. That's this. I don't know. I don't know.
So I should
Anyway,
tell you maybe now that I've only seen clips. I like that face.
girl, I thought we talked about this. I told you to watch it with your children,
Yeah, yeah.
your your toddler children.
Yes, yes, you did, and I have yet to do so. I'm sorry, not sorry. I mean, I'll get
It's
there.
fine.
I know
It's
the
fine.
reference. I think it. I
Yeah.
use clips of it in my classes. I teach it, so yay.
Yeah.
But I have not done the RuPaul binge. I am aware,
Ugh.
but also
All right.
holidays are coming our way. I might have something
It's
to do.
true. You're gonna have some time on your hands. All right. So, uh, did this book like really get us going? Did it make us want to get naked? Quick answer.
Mm, maybe. My answer is maybe.
Okay. Explain.
Okay, so I did think that the sex scenes were hot, but
Uh-huh.
problematic. I like I said, I kept getting taken out of them. Like I would be like, "Oh, okay, this seems really interesting." And then I'd be like, "But why? I need more rationale here." And it wasn't there. There's a couple, yeah, so there, yes and no. It left me hot
Mm-hmm.
and cold, so maybe.
Yeah, that is also mine. Not into bondage. It's not my thing. I liked that Evie was, and her explanation for being into bondage. Like any sort of feminist equality, gender equality thing is all right in my book. But it didn't set off any fantasies for me. So maybe some, maybe not naked, but maybe like some over the clothes touching, some second
Okay. All
base,
right. So in
oversharing.
no, totally fine. Please, we talked about squirting earlier.
That's
Oversharing
true.
is out the window a while back. Um,
Great.
so in our naked book review, which is named
Mm,
so because the question it answers is, does this book make you want to get naked?
yeah.
We devised a rating system, and this gets 4 flames, but the flames have to do with
Mhm.
whether or not it's an explicit sex scene or one that happens behind closed
Multiple
doors.
explicit sex scenes. Yeah.
Right. Or if there's more than one, this definitely has the flames. I didn't give it 5 flames only because it was problematic for me. But honestly,
Hmm.
they get into some really dirty and really explicit play. So
Yeah.
it might have to be elevated to all 5 flames. And then in terms of the whether or not I liked this book, which does not necessarily hinge itself on sex play, I did not like it as much as I wanted to. Consider, like, my expectation was way up here because both Rave and Zenny were books that I enjoyed so thoroughly that I feel like this one came short for me. And got only it came short. Well, they didn't, and it should have. It only got 2 stars from me, and it's because I was comparing apples to oranges to bring us back to an
um,
orchard.
great. Great job. I agree on the four flames front. And let's just tell people there is anal in this book. So if that is a trigger for you, this book has anal along with bondage and dubious consent. I gave it 3 stars. 3 is my average. Like I really have to actively not want to read the book for it to get anything lower than 3 stars for me. Um, and that's where we're at. Any last thoughts on Sanctuary?
I think my last thought on Sanctuary is that I am unlikely to read Haven or Harbor, but I will absolutely be reading more Rebecca Weatherspoon because I'm interested in her point of view and how she
Yeah.
boldly proceeds with her characters. So
Yeah.
yay to more Rebecca Weatherspoon, maybe not more Beard and Bondage series.
Copy that. So this was my first Rebecca Weatherspoon, and the way that you and the rest of book club has talked up the rest of the series, I'm going to be continuing to read her. So you've sold me on Rebecca Weatherspoon. Yes, the rest of the series, I don't know. We'll see. I pretty much will read whatever. All right, listeners, have you read this book? Are you going to pick this up and read it now? Let us know. Come over to our comments, DM us, whatever sparks, however you want to talk to us.
We're consenting to a lot here.
Yes, we absolutely are. All right, so I think we're going to talk very quickly about book birthdays, what's coming out in December 2020, our to be read shelf, and then we're gonna peace out of here. So book birthdays for December 2020. We have the one I'm most excited about is How to Fail at Flirting by Denise Williams. This is her first book. We came across Denise Williams through Pitch Wars. She was a mentor there. And it looks super cute. I think it's like college age, so maybe new adult contemporary romance. I haven't even read the back. I'm just going to read this book, and I know nothing about it, which is kind of freeing. So this book came out on December 1st. Also came out December 1st is A Sky Beyond the Storm by Sabaa Tahir.
Which I'm super stoked about and have been waiting for a long time. And I'm having a hard time because this is it's the fourth in a series, and this world is awesome. These characters are fantastic. It's extremely cerebral, Roman Empire style society where dominance and being the perfect specimen of a human matters to this legion of soldiers and warriors. The cool part about this legion is that gender is not necessarily a factor in whether or not you can be the greatest warrior, and I appreciate that very much. Here's the bit where I'm struggling. This awesome world is stressful AF. There are you lose side characters left and right, and unapologetically so, and it's just heartbreaking. There's memeing and content warnings all over the place. There are both attempted and successful sexual assaults. It is a world of really dirty fighting, because a lot of these things happen for political reasons. It's a very complicated, complexly read world. Sabaa Tahir does an amazing job creating this world. There's also magic, and there's magic in storytelling. And one of the great powers, untapped powers that these other people don't have is storytelling. And it's that's an awesome premise. And I really want to know what happens to Elias and Layla, who are the two main characters, and Helene, who is Elias's maybe enemy, maybe best friend. She was his best friend, but things have changed drastically in the 3 books. The book 3 leaves us hanging in a bad place. And so a part of me is must read book 4 because I need to get us out of the bad place. But also stress levels so high. Literally thinking about Elias and where he is at the end of book 3, a book, by the way, I read 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And it still gives me heartburn. So if you have not read this and you have emotional bandwidth to pick up this series right now, right this second, you got to pick it up. It's so good. It is so good.
It's also a YA series, right? And that's why it has content warnings.
Yeah, I mean, I think there should be content warnings, and I feel like maybe there are. Yes, it's YA. It's very violent. There is some discussion of explicit sex, but there is most of the sexual activity is behind closed doors, except for the attempted sexual assault, which is on the page. and it's intention. It's like I said, it's political. It's intentional. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not about
Yeah.
sexual abuse. There's a lot of other physical abuses that are also. So it's like for gore and violence, it's rated R in my book.
Great.
But
So many rating systems.
so many rating systems. But yeah, so it is YA. They are younger. They're I mean, I think they're 18 and 22, the main characters. There's a
Okay.
lot of weaved in like mythologies that we're already aware of, and new created mythologies that combine into this world. The Jinn are a character, or a series of characters, a group of people that we interact with. Storytelling has magical powers, which fuck yeah, it does. And also, sorry for the F-bomb if that's not your jam. This is the first one. And yeah, so anyways, it's fantastic. The world building is fabulous. It's really cool. I just need to be ready for the heart pummeling it's gonna give me.
Nice. So, does this mean it's the next book you're going to read?
No, it is not the next book I'm gonna read, because I'm already reading the next book. So the very next book I'm reading is Mangoes and Mistletoe by Adriana Herrera, and it's a novella that, well, is obviously Christmas themed, hence the mistletoe.
Mistletoe,
it's two women enter a British Bake Off style competition in Edinburgh, Scotland, and they are enemies to lovers very quickly. Like, first 4 pages of enemies, followed by 110 pages of lovers. Yes, it's something that's been on my radar for a while. I'm really excited for it. I'm halfway through, and I cannot wait to tell you all about it when I'm done, because at the halfway mark, I stand in my entirety with this, and I needed to be more, and I need to know about this competition. Also, I've been watching a lot of Great British Bake Off, so this absolutely ties in very well to my current mood.
Amazing.
What are you reading next?
That's fantastic.
Oh, right. So you're reading How to Fail at Flirting.
No, that's going to be my second to next book. I just started Wrong Guy, Right Room by Michelle Angel. It is a second chance. If we're talking tropes, it's a second chance. The main character, Caitlin, pulled that out of the vault, is engaged to this guy. I don't remember his name. He sucks. But he has forced her. They have agreed to not have sex until after marriage. And she ends up at his hotel room, but he's not there. He's on a bachelor's, what's that called? What's the word? Bachelor
Bachelor
like
party?
A stag party.
A stag party?
Bachelor party. Yeah. He's off doing that and hooking up with a bunch of other women on the side, and he has given his room to someone who's come, his family friend who's come for the wedding. That family friend is Caitlin's ex, and like the last good fuck she ever had, essentially, I guess is. But I'm only 3 chapters in. So, and then they get locked in this hotel room. I believe it's a pandemic, so trigger there. But they're stuck in this hotel room, I think, with just one bed. You guys.
Oh!
I know, 2 back to back. What am I going to do?
Actually, so Mangoes and Mistletoes also one bed.
Nice. Man, it's becoming a theme. So that's what we're reading next. Do you have anything on the top of your to be read pile? Anything like staring you down? Or
well, I think Sabbath Tahir's Sky Beyond the Storm is definitely staring me down.
Yeah,
I put that on there, and then that's the one that I'm both anxiously anticipating reading and also maybe dreading.
Yeah. So I have 2 stacks of books by my bed. Who doesn't? And one stack is almost exclusively books people have loaned me. So I have this loner stack of like books I have to get back to my friends. So in between books, I am working through Gentleman Jack by Anne Chopra, based off of the TV show. And it's just more about Anne Lister and her diary. And
Is it book
finger
first?
dancing.
I know, I have a question. Is it the book was first or the TV show was first?
The TV show came first, and then they found out they have a bunch of additional content, and so they put it in the book. But not having seen the TV show, I don't feel like I'm missing out yet. I feel like having all this down is going to color. I'm going to get more detail from this that's going to color my viewing of the show. So that's what I'm plugging through. All right. Any last thoughts before we GTFO?
No, not really. So next Thursday we're gonna do this again. We're gonna announce what book we're gonna be reviewing on our Instagram the day before, because we have to finish reading that book first.
Read the book.
Yes, that would be great. Maybe it's one of the ones we just mentioned. Maybe we'll manage one more book in there, and then that's really my only thing that I have to say is there will be a next one. Come join us for that.
There will be. Yeah. All right. So if you like this adventure in books, or you're interested in updates about our upcoming writing projects, come follow us on Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, and those are all at L Skyford. But on Twitter, it's Skyford L. So you just got to remember, Twitter's the weird one. I'm Ford.
And I'm Sky.
Okay. And that's it for Booklandia. Bye! And the runtime is 1 hour and 15 minutes.
Record is out.